Thanks. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. This webinar today is funded by the Pasture and Profit in Protected Landscapes programme, funded by the Farming in Protected Landscapes project in Cornwall. We at Pasture for Life are running our Pasture and Profit programme across 17 protected landscapes across England. And the programme is essentially about farmer-to-farmer peer learning, so farm walks and also webinars like this. And we do invite guest expert speakers like James and Paul, who have come today to help us understand how to decode farm payments. Just to say that if you're new to the Pasture and Profit programme, then there's lots running across England. So whichever region you've joined us from today, you're welcome to sign up for more information. And my colleague Zoe will pop a link in the chat if you want to find out more information about the programme. But otherwise, without too much further ado, we'll get on with the webinar today. So I'd like to welcome James Siggs and Paul Gregory, who both work at ESUS. James is the Managing Director, and he specialises in farm business management, government grants, nutrient and manure management. And he comes from a farming background. He's had sheep and arable in North Devon, and he was the regional chairman of the National Sheep Association. Paul Gregory is a senior consultant and agronomist, and he's been leading in the establishment and management of herbal lays and countryside stewardship and sustainable farming incentive schemes throughout Cornwall. So James and Paul, I'll hand over to you to help us understand how to decode farm payments. If you have any questions, those of you who are in the audience, please do pop them in the chat as we go along. And James and Paul will keep an eye on that. And if they can, they'll address them as we go. Otherwise, we'll come back at the end and make sure that we answer all of your questions by the end of the session. We'll run until 2:30. And I think that James and Paul are going to speak for about 45 minutes. So we should have 15 minutes at the end or so for questions. Great. Over to you, James and Paul.
Okay, fine. Hello, everyone. I hope you can all see my screen. Very pleased to be here this afternoon and to talk to you all today. Decoding, I think, is the wrong word. We're just going to have a quick run through all the plethora of schemes that are now available. As you all know, single farm payment is being phased out. It's being replaced basically with about another 19 schemes. So we're just going to give a quick overview of them all, and then we'll tell you how to get onto them later at the end. Okay, so this is our program for this afternoon. We're just planning to run through a quick introduction about ESUS Agri and tell you a little bit about us, and then we'll look at all the available grants, the application process, some discussion, and then a wrap up at the end to summarise where we got to. ESUS Agri, we've been in business since 1995. We started off our work in the tropics, doing a lot with large-scale tropical agriculture. On the left, there's just a picture of us heading off up the River Congo to go and look at some plantations there. On the right is one of our clients in Papua New Guinea, who was an oil palm plantation company. And in fact, they took away the monoculture of oil palm and replaced it with grazing cattle and under the oil palms in an agroforestry situation, and ended up, in fact, giving them a much higher income. So since 2018, we've been focused on working in the UK. As Kate said, we did have a farm in North Devon, a small farm in North Devon. We were doing sheep and arable. We weren't running mules. And also, at one stage, we were also doing a lot of work in Romania. And the picture on the right is one of our tractors there, where in fact we got into regenerative agriculture and found that cover crops had made a massive effect, and we've been working on that ever since. In fact, in North Devon, we were very much paddock grazing and rotationally grazing our sheep. So since then, we now focus on all aspects of farm management throughout the Southwest. We have clients from Warminster to Land's End, ranging from people with 6 acres up to 1,500 acres and 900 cows. So we do a wide variety of things, and we keep going. So now we're going to look at the funding available. As I said, we've got something like about 20 sources which we've identified. No doubt, if you dig further, you can find some more. But I think these are the 20 that will be available to most people. We just have quickly run through the farming and protected landscapes, which was mentioned in the introduction. This project actually is now winding down, and there's really sort of not much more to say about it. If you're in it, it was quite good, and but now really other things to replace it. The grant scheme that most people are most familiar with, I'm sure now, is and heard most about is the Sustainable Farming Incentive, the SFI. The Sustainable Farming Incentive Scheme pays you to protect the benefit schemes that protect and benefit the environment. So I just rearranged my screen here. Okay, and to support food production, improve productivity. And I think there's been a lot of press about rewilding. In our experience, it's not really what SFI is about. It's about improving food and supporting food production and improving productivity. The practices are referred to as SFI actions. We'll come on to more of those in a minute. You can apply for 102 SFI actions in the expanded SFI offer of 2024. There have been 2 schemes before: the SFI pilot, three, the SFI 2022, which is now closed, the SFI 2023, which is now closed, but is still running. So if you're in SFI 2023, that will still run, but you can stack options on the 2024 on top of it. The expanded offer for 2024, offering a range of new actions such as precision farming, moorland management, flood and water management, agroforestry, and no-till farming. It also covers things like robotic weeding as well. So it's a massive scale. The endorsed actions are a new category which require approval from historic England or natural England. For example, this could be something like managing priority species rich grassland, which can apply if you've got something like purple moorgrass or heathland or upland hay meadows, anything like that. It's there and it pays much better, as you'll see later. Now, the SFI runs as a 3 or 5 year agreement, depending upon the options. And we'll see a bit about that later. In addition to this, you get the SFI management payment, which is £40 a hectare for the first 50 hectares. So the maximum you can get is £2,000 for that in the first year. It drops down to £20 a hectare for years 2 and 3. So basically, you've got that once if you enter the agreement, and you'll get that. There are certain limits for 10 certain actions, which made the press about a couple of weeks ago. Apparently 1% of all the applicants had put more than 50% of their farm in. I think 5% put more than 20% of their farm into these actions, such as improved grass and field corners, which means you're taking them out of production, winter bird food, pollen flower mix, and flower-rich margins. And there's another 6 options as well. But you can still put 25% of your farm into them. It can work quite well as a break crop, and also you can put the whole parcel in. There were rumors it would be 25% of a parcel. That has not been enacted yet, but it could be. So if we just going to look at some of the most popular options, these options can either be fixed or rotational, which means the fixed options you have to keep on the same field. Rotational can be moved around the farm. At the moment, the most popular option we're dealing with is herbal lays, which you can see the payment rate there is very considerable. After that, we're looking at legumes and improved grassland, which if you've got grassland, you've already got legumes in it, that's available to you. Assessing and recording hedgerow condition. It's a very simple, straightforward form to fill in. And if you've got lots of small fields with hedges, it's surprising how it adds up to 40 or 50 pounds an acre without thinking about it. If you're adding in the CIRHW to the managing the hedgerows. I mentioned already the winter bird food on arable horticultural land. This is £853 a hectare. The thing about it is actually it's spring to spring, so it's not winter to winter. And you can put things like a cover crop before and after it, if that works for you, or an arable crop before and after. Another crop we've done a lot of over the last 3 or 4 years is whole crop spring cereals and overwinter stubble, which you can see pays very, very well. The challenge again is it's spring to spring. So, and once you've harvested, you have got to leave the stubble until the following spring. Under the new scheme, the SFI, you can put another crop in, such as grass, but it would mean you'd have to leave it growing until the following March, which is going to be could be difficult to manage, but not overcome. And the other issue we looked at is the managing grass and with very low nutrient inputs. So effectively, if you've got grass you put virtually no fertilizer onto, then this can be a scheme to you, and basically you're getting the money for doing nothing. Paul, have you got anything to add on these?
Well, only that obviously when we had the countryside stewardship and we had the whole crop cereals, there was a restriction for what you could use for weed control. And on the AHW8, I haven't checked if there's a restriction for weed control on that spring cereal crop as well. Well, they said there is because they want to create biodiversity. And the herbal lays, obviously, when we come up, but it's more about people asking questions on the herbal lays, really, to see how they establish them. And I can tell you, obviously, the right way to do it, and the pitfalls that you're going to get.
Okay, right. So yeah, we've got to keep galloping through this because there's 20 of these things to get through. And I thought we just want to get you a quick overview of what's available because there's so much. On the SFI, the other thing that you have to look at is the new actions which they brought in. So, for example, if you keep native breeds, then you'll get supplements paid on those on grazing habitats, but they either have to be low input grassland or on agroforestry or the high priority species. That so you went that it depends. If you get 100% native breeds, you'll get more money than that. I said agroforestry is being introduced. The first is low density field agroforestry on less sensitive land, £248 a hectare. Basically, that's planting some trees in, so you can actually farm underneath it. Depending on what your system is, you can put the trees in rows, or you can just space them out. And there's various payments on that. The other thing for grassland is if you've got blocks of grassland which are difficult to manage, don't really do anything, you can take those out of management. They're paying you £333 a hectare. And then we come on to the.
Just interrupt. Are your slides moving on because we're stuck on the?
Oh, sorry. I moved. Yes.
Just to check.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. And I'm running two screens, and one moves and one the other. Okay. And then the other thing we look at is managing priority species habitat, which again that has to be endorsed by Natural England, which means that this either has to be mapped already as a priority species, which you can find on the various mapping apps that are available, or if not, if you've got a priority habitat on Bodmin Moor, you've got several clients who are getting habitats which are brilliant for the fritillary butterflies, and these will be remapped as priority habitats, and then we'll be able to get the GRH6 on those habitats on those fields. Then we come on to the total farm options. Okay. CSM1, assess soil and produce a soil management plan, assess soil organic matter, £6 a hectare, an additional payment of £97 per agreement. It doesn't seem much, but at the end of the day, under farming rules for water, you have to test your land for NPK and magnesium every 5 years. If you're a livestock farmer in the southwest, the chances are the RPA will be catching up with you at some stage, and they'll be looking for this. You'll have to add a soil organic matter test to this to get this green, which is about £10 a sample. If you've got a lot of small fields in the same management and the same soil type, these can be all sampled as one sample. So you take a bit of soil out of each field, that's your composite sample, and that counts. So it does
that works quite well, actually, with the smaller farmers you've got smaller lots of fields, because they are actually probably range farming or just run it as a whole. It actually it lessens the cost. And if that's all you're doing is sheep on 4 or 5 fields, put them together.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. And then also on this one, if you are already in countryside stewardship GS2, you need to have a soil nutrient management plan for that. So if you enter an SFI, the nutrient management plan will pay for that, as you can see in CM2. The other thing is the CIPM1, okay, that is, you might think, well, actually, I'm a grassland-only farmer. I don't use chemicals. Why do I need it? In fact, it's, for a grassland farm, it's mainly about integrated weed management. It's a paper form that you need to run through with your agronomist. It takes about half an hour to do, and you pick up £1,100 for doing so.
Not very onerous at all, that one. That is literally just answering questions.
Yeah. Okay. Right, Joelle. Countryside stewardship has not disappeared, but it will just continue as higher tier. And again, the main things they're looking at is relevant increased improvements in biodiversity, habitat, air quality, natural flood management. You need support from Natural England to be able to enter into that. And generally, you need to be on a triple SI, on a triple SI, or have some habitat that is ready to be priority habitat. It's quite long-winded to get into. We're not quite sure when the applications windows are open yet, but if you're thinking about it, you've got some priority habitat, it is worth looking at because it's a longer-term agreement and the payment rates are better. In terms of looking at longer-term schemes, of course, landscape recovery, which pays groups of farmers and land managers to do long-term, large-scale projects together. They're talking 25 years, 20 to 25 years in this. And you need to have at least 500 connected hectares. It's quite fluid about how the connections are. The real advantage of this one is longer term. Two, it means that actually you as a farmer and your group design what you want to do. It's not like fitting into the prescription of countryside stewardship or sustainable farming incentive. If you're operating in Cornwall at the moment, in the Bodmin Moor area, there's 2 or 3 initiatives, landscape recovery initiatives, who are looking for more members. And if you'd like connections to those, please tell Kate and we'll put you in touch with those schemes. It's got lots to go for it. For example, the landscape recovery in the Scilly Isles is going to, part of their thing is to put in a local or mobile abattoir in the Scilly Isles. So it's quite broad as what it can do. And it's long-winded, but it does seem as though it could be very interesting for those people who want to work with others and look for the long term. Now we come on to, capital grants. Okay. In the past, capital grants were tied to countryside stewardship. They're no longer tied to countryside stewardship. They're now 3-year agreements are offering capital items to achieve specific environmental benefits. Boundaries, trees and orchards. This would cover things like hedge laying, hedgerow coppicing, and gateways, things like that. Or if you want to replant an orchard, there's money to replant your orchard. Improved water quality is weird, but actually fencing comes into improved water quality. It also comes into items, things like concrete yard renewal, putting roof over your feeding areas, putting a floating cover over a slurry lagoon, and also things like that, which works very well. And improving air quality. Again, this comes to things like automatic scrapers and and planting trees around slurry lagoons. That and improved natural flood management will come to things looking at things like leaky dams, stuff like that. I can't go through them all. There's 123 options. It's unlimited value. In the past, there used to be a maximum limit on these grants of 60,000. Then it went up to 120. It's now unlimited. We have clients who are applying for up to 350,000, supported by the Catchment Sensitive Farming Officer. And I said some will require support from the Catchment Sensitive Farming Officer. It's quite long-winded, but they are helpful. But there's some of the staff, it takes a long time to get them through in Devon and Cornwall. And you can apply for these all the year round. So, but they're well worth looking at. So if you want to get your farm refenced, it's well worth looking at that. Okay. Then we come off to the investment in equipment, technology, and infrastructure to increase productivity, which is all set out by George Eustace when he launched all these schemes back in 2020. Okay, the Farming Equipment and Technology Fund. Some of you may have already applied. They're grants to help you buy items to improve productivity, manage slurry, improve animal health and welfare. So on them, we're getting things like cattle crushes, cattle handling systems, sheep handling systems, direct drills for those of you interested in direct drilling, electric fencing for those of you who are, and the equipment to support it for mob grazing. Basically, it's a massive list of stuff. The thing is, the actual window it opens in January each year, and it closes within a month. And by that time, you've got to be organized and know that actually what you want to buy and what it's going to cost you. So it's worth looking into these things and thinking about it well in advance. We get the Water Management Grant, round 2. Round 1 last year was basically about improving irrigation lagoons, and I can't tell you exactly what the deals are for round 2. The Slurry Investment Infrastructure Grant, which was again opened. There's a round going on at the moment, and that's really looking at giving you grants to increase slurry storage, or in fact, there's robots for the slurry scraping, putting covers on the slurry stores, something like that. If you go in for the infrastructure grant now, they will be looking for you to put a rigid tent or rigid cover over your slurry lagoon, and your slurry lagoon will have to be SAFO compliant or bring it up to SAFO compliance. Okay. The added value grant was available. It's now closed. It's now closed. It was open last year. It may open again, and that was giving grants for people to add value to their produce. So it could be something like a high-speed grading line for someone producing potatoes, or in fact, we had one client who was producing wicker, and they were looking for things to improve the productivity of their wicker production. So it would improve a lot there. We then come on to the Improving Productivity, Farm Productivity Grant, round 2, which again opened early this year. It was closed. This is covering a lot of robotic auto equipment. It covered, in fact, robotic milking machine, robotic milkers, robotic feeders of all sizes. And also they're giving 15,000 to 100,000 for photovoltaic systems that are going on farm roofs. So if you've got a farm roof, you think we'll put some photovoltaic on, look out for the next round. Okay. Now we're coming on to the Improving Annual Health and Welfare Review. Now, just basically as I started this report, this presentation email came through from RPA that they are changing how this annual health review works. It's no longer going to be part of SFI, and it'll be standalone. But basically, what it means is there's a grant available to pay you to get an annual vet review, and the payment you get depends upon your livestock type. It means you have to have a minimum number of animals to do it, and it just it's there to help you do that. I suppose it means that then you're ready to deal with your vet when he wants to give you, and if you're looking for antibiotics or other medication on farm. Okay, and then we get the Permanent Health and Welfare Grant, which again there's the FETF. Again, on that one, it's closed now for this year. It was open earlier this year, and this covered all sorts of things, such as cow brushes, which one of my clients was big on, and cow handling system, robotic calf feeding systems, and all sorts of items like that for basically which are prevent animal health and welfare. Then we come on to the next thing, is the Farming Transformation Fund. Some of you may have already heard about this.
And your slide's not moving on.
No, no, it's okay. I realised that. Okay. The first one was the calf housing for health and welfare, which was building new calf housing buildings. That's closed now. The next one, what is currently open, is laying hen housing for health and welfare. So again, the grant on that will fund hen and pullet farmers to refurbish and replace new existing laying hen bullet housing. Again, also adding solar panels to it. That is open now. So if you're a pod farm, look at that. Cattle housing for health and welfare. There will be grants for upgrading housing for cattle 6 months plus, open late 2024. And late 2024, I'm afraid, is a difficult time to know what, in fact, that means. Okay. The next thing is we're looking at, there's a lot of money available at the moment for improving woodland and protecting tree health. The grants now for creating woodland are very considerable. And well, if you're interested in planting some woodland, then now's the time to look at doing it. The grants available, and it's just the minimum area now is 1 hectare. If your land is creating regional woodland, if your land is located within the catchment area, one of our woodland creation partners, you can apply for regional woodland creation, and tree planting grant can be tailored to your circumstances. So, I know, for example, Forest for Cornwall are doing a lot of things in Cornwall, and in fact, basically, if you're giving you trees for nothing at the moment. So, if you're looking at woodland now's the time to think about it. And we're not sure, in fact, whether they will. We think they're going to give us trees for agroforestry as well. Okay. So before you plant it, I guess you've got to plan your woodland, right? In countryside stewardship, there is a grant for the woodland management plan. You have to have that grant before you can go forward to get any of the other grants that come in, the woodland grants, which cover things like maybe it needs a design plan, the tree health pilot scheme, it may be replanting, it may be you get grants to improve the infrastructure in your woodlands. So if you need tracks to get them in and out. I've got to say also that in the Farm Equipment Technology Fund, there are also woodland grants in that. So you can get grants for tree shears. There's grants for the tractors and trailers that take wood, cutting wood and get them felling and removing the wood from the grants. So again, there's a huge amount of money there waiting to be done. Okay. Water Restoration Fund. I can't say we've had anything to do with that, but again, the grants are there. And again, if you're looking to as a group to improve and prevent further deterioration of rivers, streams, canals, lakes, ponds, wetland water, estuarine waters. Okay. And again, these are long-term plans, big amounts of money available, and those are the sort of thing that could be useful to you. Now, there's been a lot of talk about attracting investment into nature projects. Some of you may have heard about biological net gain. I've not put that in this presentation because really it's a private sector initiative rather than government, though it is linked to the private sector. And what, in fact, there's the Natural Environment Investment Readiness Fund was grants available to help farmers develop schemes that would attract private investments in nature projects, such as selling carbon credit units through peatland creation, or maybe just biological net gain and things like that. So that again at the moment is closed. But again, it's like all of these that they keep opening up and closing, and you just have to be on the time. We try and always keep our clients up to date with what's going on. But it's for busy farmers, it's a job really to keep up with all of these. Funding for research innovation. If you have an idea, you've got something that you think could improve horticultural productivity, sustainability, and resilience, then there's grants available to do this, whatever stage your project is. If it's an idea there's a grant available to do it. If you've got an idea that needs developing from you've got a feasibility study, you need to take it to the next stage, there are grants available to do that. And if you got an idea that's, beyond, you've got to prototype and need spinning up. There's money available to do that. It's quite a long-winded, well, it's not that long-winded process. It is a competitive process to do this, and you need to be able to team up with an expert such as a university. But again, it's the money's there, and if you've got something that you want to do and you think you can develop, then go for it. Then we come down to there's all sorts of local initiatives. Okay, and this is all through the Rural England Prosperity Fund. Now, this has been allocated out to the various district or county councils to administer, and it's hidden up in your county council website somewhere. In the Cornwall, the Isles of Scilly, there's been 5 million allocated to this, looking at farm diversification, booster rural tourism. If you want to build, convert your buildings, which you now can, into holiday lets or a farm shop or offices or something like that, then these are eligible for funding. It's again, you've got to put in quite a detailed proposal, and the grant funding, you would have to match fund it with a 10% of the total funding. Again, you have to find the money and then get it repaid. But I mean, there are financial institutions now specializing in doing this. So if you're in North Devon or in Torridge and North Devon, then that's in the North Devon district, in the North Devon District Council, and it'll be wherever you else are in Devon or Cornwall. But I mean, there's the money there, and so often it's just disappeared and gone back. So if you're thinking about doing something in rural tourism or community or infrastructure, look at it. Okay, right. Okay, so that's run through the thing. I'm sorry I've galloped on at a rate of knots, but I think we've got plenty of time for questions to come back to them. Would be better, really. The application process is now quite straightforward, really. All applications now start online. So if you're not online and registered with the RPA, then you should just do that. I guess if you're actually on this webinar, then you're quite comfortable with dealing with these sort of things. So do that and just make sure. The key to these applications again is making sure that your RPA maps are all up to date. If you've got the land cover, some people, we see this, people have had land that's been arable forever, and it's been arable for 10 years, but it's still on their land RPA maps, land cover as permanent pasture. It means you can't enter an SFI option on it. All you have to do is go back on the online service now, change the land cover, if it's one single land cover, and you go ahead. So it's just annoying, but you can end up with a complete blockage on what you're doing in these sort of things. To keep up to date with the what's going on, then in fact you need to sign up for the DEFRA blog. I've given the link there. If you get that, you get up to date with all the things, what is coming out, and it's the only way to do that, or unless someone else is getting your information from somewhere else. But you just have to keep scanning all the time to understand what's coming out, because they keep saying that do press releases that make the press that, hey, we're going to do something extraordinary in the next, this year, and this year means any time between January the 1st and December the 31st at 11 p.m. If you need CSFO approval, then that's another form has to be filled in. Again, it's an online form that you need to do. It needs assorted maps and pictures. It's quite straightforward to do, and the CSFOs, catchment sensitive farming officers, are generally very helpful and will help you work your way through. It's just the moment they're very slow in getting anything done. And if you're thinking about doing it, allow yourself 6 months to do it. And then the next thing you have to remember is that if you're on or next to a triple SI, you have to submit a request to Natural England that you want to make some changes. All you have to do is submit the request and make sure it's logged with them before you do it. So if your application isn't successful, you don't do it, nothing happens. But that's really How you go? Did he do it? Oops. So sorry, I have gone through that. I wish I got better with practice on this. We're in it 6 minutes. I'm sorry if it's very rapid, but if there's any questions now, we're very pleased to discuss it. Anything else you want to know? That's the end of my presentation for the moment.
Yeah, and is there anything you want to know about establishing herbal lays? Put the question up, and we'll have a discussion.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, James, and thank you, Paul, for jumping as well. Thank you for such a comprehensive overview. I've got a few questions noted down, but I'm going to open to questions. If you feel happy to just speak up, then please just unmute and ask your question, or if you prefer to, put them in the chat and I'll read them out for James and Paul to answer. So any questions?
I can jump in with a couple to kick us off if you like.
Go for it, Rob.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Paul. My first one is going to be on behalf of the project farmers that I look after in the north. Do you know what the process is for unsuccessful applications on any of the schemes? Because we have had a couple of people mention our WhatsApp where they've made recent applications and it's been unsuccessful. Is there an opportunity to reapply? One of them
what success? What have they been unsuccessful for?
It's one of the animal welfare. I was just scanning back through the WhatsApp group to find the exact one, but it was one of the animal welfare and equipment applications. We had a scenario where a couple of people had been unsuccessful, and we're looking to see whether they could. What's the terminology I'm looking for when you can sort of reapply or get feedback or something like that? So do you know what the sort of the process is with these if you're unsuccessful? Is the question.
Yes, it's been yes. If you come back to on the Farm Equipment Technology Fund, okay, the key to getting success on that is making sure that you get your score high enough. And so you might include a few things like I mentioned cattle brushes, okay, and we put in cattle brushes on all our applications because they score a lot and don't cost much, and that gets the average scorer.
Also, 3-in-1 carving gates and stuff like that.
Yes,
for health for the animal, that type of stuff scores a lot.
Yes. Okay. So on Farm Equipment Technology Fund, there's that one. On the slurry one, again, most of the people we've had to turn down is because it was in phase 1 when they were outside of the area. And for the priority because they didn't allocate enough money, and the whole thing about it is competitive. So if you don't score at the top, if you're not at the top of the list, then you're not going to get it. And all you can do is come back again when you come round for the next application. And I think all they are is they're changing the priorities again on the slurry because I got another client who's close to a triple SI. The client for SI who is not in the priority area, they're saying now they want it to be in the priority area. Okay, and then it'll come down to also what the catchment sensitive farming officer says. So it's one of these things at the moment. Those grants are competitive, and so if you're not at the top of the tree, then you won't get it, and all you can do is wait to come round again.
Real, thank
you.
Not
much help.
No, that's fair enough. And then my other question was around what are you guys advising around 3 years or 5 years? Is it sensible to go for 3 years and then look to extend to 5, or is your advice go straight in for 5 years? And
are you talking on the herbal side of stuff, so herbal lays and things like that?
Well, any of the ones where you've got a 3 year to 5 year, what?
My opinion on advice? Yeah, my opinion on the herbal lays is that you really want to be 3 years because what we find is you introduce a nice herbal lay, you've got a lot of nitrogen in the soil. The clover is fixing nitrogen for you, but you do tend to lose and deplete the actual natural bank that's in the soil of nitrogen. And when you get to year 3, your yields start to drop considerably, even though you've got clover or legumes in the mix. So rotational fields are much better for a herbal or legume rich mix, whichever scheme you're in.
Yeah, I think Paul's right. I think it would depend. For example, if you look at the priority grassland, that is only that you have to be on a 5-year mix, on a 5-year agreement on that. Okay, and it just depends on your view of how you see the future, how it suits your farm, because you don't want to be farming for the subsidies. You're trying to make the subsidies fit your farm, really. And like the rotational lays, you can rotate them around the farm. So if you go into a 5-year agreement on that one, you can move them around the farm. It's not static, and so you can think like with the legume breaks as well. You can use that as a break and take it around the farm. You can use actually the wild winter bird food as a break, because you can have a non-cereal winter bird food and use that as a break and take it around the farm. So it's got. I think what you would do is look at what fits your farm, not farm to what fits your farm, and take subsidy that fits your farm. Don't farm to fit the subsidy, because the subsidy is a government led. If you take a 5-year contract, you have a 5-year contract with the government. If that suits you, do it. If you're not sure what's going to happen, then go for 3-year options. That would be my advice.
It's all about building resilience in the soil, and that's what these environmental schemes is about, being resilient in the soil. Down in the southwest here, we have quite resilient soils because we've got a lot of grassland. But the government schemes are, don't forget, are country led. And where in the eastern counties where they're all cereals, they're trying to improve those soils as well. So we can't almost think in the one way that where's the southwest, it's all about the southwest, but the whole thing is, a country-led scheme.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you. I'm going to ask, I don't know if there's any questions in the chat or any hands up yet, so I'm going to ask my question. On the CIPM1 option in the SFI, the integrated pest management, we're sort of, I wondered if you thought it was possible to achieve that without having to have an agronomist involved. And I say that because I think that there's actually a lot of work in the kind of pasture kind of world around integrated pest management in relation to parasites and thinking about dung beetle health and things. So I think that could, as long as that option covers that sort of integrated pest management, it could be very relevant to our pasture farmers. But I wondered, you said run through it with your agronomist. What if you haven't got one?
Well, the actual template that you can use, uses a document for you. So I think because when George Eustace put all this stuff together, I don't know if you're aware that I think his sister was an agronomist, and so he lent on the basis scheme of agronomists to actually produce this stuff. So that's where that's leading from. So I think you need someone with a qualification just to sign off the actual stuff. But it's just a discussion.
Yes.
Fair enough. So you do actually need it signed off by an agronomist to be eligible. It's not a sort of it's easier with someone. You literally need to have one involved to be able to be eligible for that payment.
Yes, that's right. Yes, you need. Yeah, it has to. I have to double check it, but yeah, it is just basically you had to have an agronomist to get yourself signed off on it, and that's all it's about. So, and there's you get an agronomist will help you, and also it comes on to things like. The main thing they're looking at is controlling dogs, which I think, on that one is, I take what you say about dung beetles and everything else like that, and it does. We need to look at that and basically how are we going to get dogs, because the other thing that's coming forward is that there's playing an SFI option now for automated for spot spraying, basically not rather than people using a knapsack, but actually with a 24-meter machine, which with camera guided spot spraying, which will come on and reduce that. But you just at the moment to sign off and agree to get the grant, you have to have a basis qualified agronomist sign off.
So it sounds like that's
as you do with
more for arable.
Sorry, there's 2 templates online. There is a grassland template and an arable template.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it is. And we're just saying the grassland template is there. It's very straightforward, and it's mainly. And it is mainly about controlling perennial. Well, how do you control your weeds and dogs? For example, do how do you do it? Do you spray it? Do you top them? Do you dig them up? Do you have some other thing? And then looking for how would you go and improve it? So, you know, if you're looking to, you can draw up a plan and say, well, how can I improve this? Because what we're seeing mainly with these herbal lays is controlling docks in them is a big challenge.
Very big.
And, you know, if I were looking at it, I would say, actually, well, hang on. We don't talk about using the wormers and the fly sprays and everything else we're using as well. And I mean, this all comes down into your rotational grazing. If you go rotational grazing, you cut down everything else like that. But I'm just saying, from our point of view, we're saying, you know, it's there. It's something you can pick up £1,000. You know, if you've got an agronomist you use or not, if you can find, if not, just employ an agronomist for an hour, and they'll do it for you. And also, you'll learn something from it as well, and you'll think about it.
Great, thank you. Any questions from our audience? Any burning questions you'd like to ask about anything at all while we have James and Paul here to pick their brains?
Paul, do you want to say something while people are thinking about establishing herbal lays and your experience?
Yeah, so basically the problem you've got is, obviously, if you've got an established pasture that's over 5 years old, you've got a large root mass of hares there. They're very competitive grasses, and if you're trying to stitch in herbal lays, just the shall we say the herb and legume package, it's got to compete with something that's got a structure already there. Now, there's options you can do. You can, like, mob graze the field down tight as you possibly can. Time, harrow, or beat up the grass that's there. Slow the grass that's established to re-establish. Then when you direct drill and stitch in your herb pack or herb and legume pack, you get a chance for it to actually establish. That's the problem you've got. Yeah, it has to get itself some roots and establish against something that's got roots already. And that is the main one to establish. You can, if you want to, you can actually spray off the grass and introduce a total grass package that's SFI compliant. But in spraying off the grass, what you do, you turn that grass, instead of producing oxygen, producing carbon dioxide. So you get a no-grow zone of carbon dioxide. So again, you need to introduce air into the soil, you know, lift it up, break it down, and actually then go from there. So there's different ways of establishing a herbal lay, but it's literally on the day and what the weather's going to do in the future is how you go about it.
Thanks, Paul. There's a question in the chat now from Keith. I'm going to put it into two parts because I think the first part about size is really important. From my experience in the past, there's been a lot of confusion, I think, about what aspects of previous farm payments applied to different sizes of holding. So are there any size restrictions on, for instance, the SFI or the higher tier countryside stewardship, or any of the other key ones? And then we'll come back to the Scotland question. Okay.
Yes, on the there's no restrictions on the SFI. The challenge you have is that if you've been too small to claim BPS, or you haven't claimed BPS, or you've bought a farm recently and the previous farmer took the retirement and you've got to start from scratch again, then you couldn't apply until now. Now, if you want to apply, what you have to do is go and put an expression of interest in, okay, fill in the expression of interest survey, and then you will be invited to apply at some stage. They're not saying when yet. They did this with the 2023. It was all do an expression of interest, and suddenly, bang, it was all open for everybody. But just do an expression of interest, and you'll go from there. And I mean, the smallest person we've done countryside stewardship for was 7 acres.
Great, thanks, James. And would you like to make some comment about sort of Scottish schemes or where to find more information about that? Because I think I know they're very different, and to ask you to speak about them might be, it's like Scottish and English lawyers. They don't cross the borders, do they?
I wouldn't. I've got lots of Scottish friends. I wouldn't dare. No, sorry. We have these schemes. We just operate in England, and so we are familiar with the English schemes. And don't want to speculate on the Scottish schemes. Okay.
Keith, I can, if you want to message on Cornwall I'll try to pass you on to one of our Scottish team who will definitely have contacts or know where to look up in Scotland, if that's helpful. Kara, would you like to ask your question, please? Unmute and ask away about herbal lays.
So we're completely new to sort of like overseeding and things. We are on the edge of Bodmin Moor. We've got permanent pastures that have always been there. They are really herb rich, as in we've got Beresford, trefoil, we've got many different plantains, we've got different types of clover, we have at least 5 different grasses. We want to do the SAM free, I think it is SAM free, but we don't want to upset the balance of what does well. We've got yarrow, all sorts there, which are in the seed mixes, but I don't know if we have the percentage across a metre squared that they require. How do we approach it? Because what is there works well, we get a good yield off and we maintain it with very low inputs.
Okay.
I'll grab that one if you want. So basically, how I do it is if a farmer wants to enter like the SAM3 agreement and is not quite sure, I go and do a field review, and write a report to tell them what I see. So if you've got yarrow and you've got all your trefoil in there, in 99% of the cases, they are not fully compliant. Now, it's what you want to do to make yourself compliant. If you have a report from a qualified agronomist to say that I can see the 5 species of grass, I can see 2 legumes, and I can see a couple of wildflowers, then it's how you feel comfortable to make yourself compliant. A dedicated SFI herbal pack from any grass seed company, as long as they, it is a qualified SFI herbal pack, can be sown in at like 4 kilos an acre, to just boost those herbs that are in there to make yourself compliant. It's down to really the report that you get from a qualified agronomist to say what he can see, and that's subjective really, because that can be like time of year, state of the growth of the actual plants. So it's how confident you feel that you are compliant to go ahead really. If you need that, that report to confirm, then that's what you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, basically, under the new, as Paul said, under the new agreement, you can maintain an existing herbal lay, get paid for this action if it meets the action's requirements. You may need to resow it to make sure it can reasonably expect to achieve the action's aid, and is not being already paid for under another environmental scheme. So if you've got good herbal lays and you've got someone there qualified to say, actually, well, this is good enough, then it's eligible.
The new CSAM3, that you only actually need 1 grass, 2 legumes, and 2 herbs or wildflowers. But there is a restriction on that, or how much nitrogen you can put on. So, end of the day, if you're not putting a lot of nitrogen on, you might actually, fall into that category straight away.
Yeah. Okay.
Lovely, thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Paul and James. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask? Feel free to put them in the chat if you would prefer. Whilst we're just waiting for any last questions to come up, I'd just like to thank James and Paul for all the effort they've put into preparing for today and bringing all their knowledge and expertise and answering our questions. And also thanks to all of you for coming along to participate. And we would be very grateful if the audience would give us some feedback. Rob's launched a poll in Zoom. Give us a shout if you're not able to access it. We would very much welcome your feedback about how you found today, and it's all anonymous. Keith has put a comment in that says, thanks, we have 6 acres and working hard to turn it into a business rather than a hobby, so the restrictions on size are quite frustrating. Who do you say to message? I'll pop thanks, Keith, I'll just pop the email in again.
So about the 6 acres, so I missed that.
So Keith is on 6 acres, I think, up in Scotland, and he was just saying
in Scotland, okay, yes.
I don't know if there are size restrictions up there. I know that obviously you said historically with BPS there was a limit. And that can be frustrating because sometimes you can have a very profitable farm business on a small patch.
Yes, I'd agree. It is. It's I think a 6 acre dairy farm, 6 acre farm is at the moment is more profitable than the 900 cow dairy herd.
Yes, possibly.
Really,
Yeah,
given the
depending
current
what you're
milk price.
growing.
You know, so anyway. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much again for everyone for coming. I think James and Paul will just hang on to the last in case anyone wants to ask the last question. But yeah, thanks to our audience if you're all ready to head off.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's I put a summary up. We know there's a lot of support available. Keep monitoring. The online application is very straightforward now. The key is making sure our PA maps are up to date. Be prepared. Aim for success. Don't, this is where, especially if you're looking at most of your grass, there's a lot of support there. Okay. Anyway, whoops. And thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you and share ideas with everybody. And, we're members of Pasture for Life, so we're supporters of Pasture for Life as well. And have been when we were farming ourselves as well. So
great. Thanks so much, James.
Yeah. Okay.
Grand. Rob, I think we're all done if you want to stop the recording if you haven't already.